Just before we get into the main episode, a quick message from a friend of OnFARM recorded in her tractor cab.
Hello, my name is Katie Brisbane and I am a project coordinator for RET, the Royal Highland Education Trust. We work to give children a greater understanding of food, farming and the countryside. This year we have a focus on the journey of food, seeds and grains, highlighting all the great things produced by Scotland's soils. If you're a farmer or work in a rural business and you'd like to get involved, to volunteer or sponsor our work, we'd love to hear from you. We also have a huge range of educational resources on the website. If you know any teachers or educators who might appreciate them, you can find out more at www.red.org.uk.
Hi, it's Monty here for this episode of OnFARM, the Food, Agriculture and Rural Matters podcast. We're on an arable farm called Learielaw at Broxburn in West Lothian, which is farmed by the Dandy family. And we're here as guests of SAYFC, the Scottish Association of Young Farmers Clubs, and specifically their Agri Affairs Committee, because it's their annual conference weekend. And we're just waiting on the bus arriving, and I'm here just before they arrive with our sponsor for this episode from Gillespie McAndrew. We've got Dave Halligan joining us.
Thanks, Monty. Yeah, so Gillespie McAndrew being a full-service law firm that serves all of Scotland and across the border as well in some circumstances. I'm from the Land and Rural Business team where we focus on all agricultural matters, landed estates, and anything that ticks in the rural world.
And this is a blast from the past for you because you've a young farmer's background, is that right?
To some extent, Monty, as you can tell from my voice, I'm not Scottish myself. I'm from Canada, where I was a former member of the Junior Farmers Association of Ontario for Prince Edward County. So hopefully we have some listeners from the county today.
I want to cut you short there because we've got to go because here's the bus coming. So let's go and meet some of these young farmers. Just yourself at the moment. Yeah, absolutely. Morning. Crawford. Sorry, I'm Monty.
What? Oh, Monty, nice to
so we're doing the podcast.
Yes, aye, right up.
Yeah,
You as well.
Yes, how are you? So that's great. That's the coach arrived, and I think there's something like 26 young farmers or whatever, and we've got David Dandy, the host farmer, who's going to be taking them round. Morning, David. How you doing?
Not bad yourself.
Yeah, good. Are you ready for this onslaught?
I think so. Hopefully, anyway. Time will tell.
Good. So what are we doing? We're just having a look around the farm?
Yeah, look around the farm. I'll give a kind of introduction after, but we're mainly an arable unit and we've got beef cattle as well. So yeah, just have a walk round and hopefully plenty of questions asked and we'll see how it goes.
Cool, good.
You know what, we'll head over to that shed, we can start on that one. I'm Crawford McLaren, I'm the East Agri and Rural Affairs Chairman for SAYFC. We're here this weekend at the Agri and Rural Affairs Conference, which happens every year. So this year we're in Edinburgh. So we're on various farm tours and forestry tours this morning. There's a beef visit down in Galashiels, and we're here with the arable visit at Learielaw Farm by the Dandy family, the permission of the Dandy family. So the rest of the conference is various panel sessions and breakout sessions into looking at different aspects of farming, rural activity and different diversifications in the business. And last night there was a panel session at Craigie's Farm Shop with a night out afterwards in Edinburgh. And later on this evening there's an awards due in association with the rest of SAYFC, first of its kind for us, for rewarding anybody that's put extra work into young farmers for their club or for their district, or the unsung heroes of young farmers, giving them a bit of recognition. So that's what the Agri Affairs Weekend is all about this year, and hopefully everybody enjoys it and takes away lots from it and adds new ideas and operations to their own businesses at home. This trip specifically that we're on is any of these visits, you want to see what somebody else is doing compared to what you're doing at home. Are we doing the correct thing? Can we do something slightly differently? It's really just an ideas taking opportunity. It's actually what most of this whole weekend every year is about, is bringing ideas, seeing other people's ideas, sharing them with everybody else, and just chatting about the industry and where it's going to go in the future and what you're doing now. Can we do it differently, more efficiently, more carbon efficiently, and just trying to be better at what we're doing. Right guys, we'll make a wee start. So I'd just like to welcome you all along here to Learielaw Farm of Walter Dandy and Sons. Quick introduction, this is David Dandy, running an operation of 3,000 acres, 500 owned, 2,500 contract farmed. So I'll just hand straight over to David and he'll do a further introduction and welcome round.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all here, and I might say you're actually all looking more fresh-faced than I thought you would. I'll give you a brief introduction to the farm. My grandfather bought Learielaw Farm in the mid-60s. When he bought it, it was actually a dairy farm and it consisted of 120 acres. From the mid-60s to 1983, I think, was the last time we bought land. They expanded it up to 500 acres of own ground. In 1993, we took on our first contract farm agreement, and since then we now run 7 contract farming agreements in the area. So 2,500 acre contract farmed, 500 owned. We primarily are an arable unit. We grow winter barley, winter oilseed rape, winter wheat and spring barley, and that leaves about 250 acres of grassland for the beef cattle unit. We have 80 cows, limousine cross cows, which start calving end of January. We supply 2 butchers every week, so there's 5 cattle goes to the butchers every week, and we sell the surplus cattle to the Cali market. Soil types about here, we range quite considerably. The ground round about the farm here itself is very light, sandy, easy work soil. The town of Broxburn sits down there. Once we go over the town of Broxburn, we get into heavy, clayer soil. But it works quite well for our rotation. The heavier ground, we generally run a 5-year rotation. So, like I say, wheat, winter barley, oilseed rape, first year wheat. The heavy ground then gets a second year wheat. The light ground will go to a spring barley, and then year 5, spring barley, back round again.
So we've just come out of the machinery shed and I've grabbed this man here for a quick word. What's your name, sir?
It's David Black from Kinross Young Farmers.
David, we actually chatted at a Young Farmers meeting previously when I was doing some mentoring, didn't we? Because you're a fan of the podcast, is that right?
I do enjoy my podcast in the tractor. It's a good way to pass the time. So.
Good. You listen to OnFARM, don't you?
Oh, obviously.
Good man. What's your take on the visit so far? What are you learning?
Well, it's always good to get out and see what other people are doing, and I think it's brilliant when you see someone that's doing contract farming. They have a real grip of their costs, and I think that's something that's really important nowadays. And there's not many industries you go into that people don't actually know their production cost, and it's good the attention to detail they've got here, so really enjoying that.
We've got 2 set of rollers, so this is the 10.3 metre, the kind of light set. We've also got an 8.2 metre set of rollers. I don't think they're here, I think they're up at the other farm. They've got shatter boards on them as well, so we use them quite often. So when we're double cultivating, we'll rip a shallow pass that's about 4 inches deep, and then we run the rollers with the shatter boards over just to get more of a tilth, and then we go back in the cultivator deep again to sow rape. So the 8.2s they're a heavier set, they're more used for a kind of tillage more as anything. I think the rake, it's just a single rotor rake, I think it's at the back. Rake it up, lift it with the forage wagon. Forage wagon's actually shared with another farmer. So we own 50%, they own 50%. Works quite well. We do our first cut first, then they're about 10 miles further west than here. So they're doing their first cut and second cuts later, so it works quite well, and you can share no there's a lot of cost with a wagon running it, but you can share your costs with them.
I'm Heber, I'm from up in Caithness, and we've come into a different shed here at Learielaw to see some more bits of kit. There's some big bits of kit kicking about in the shed. So I came on this visit just to kind of see a different part of the country. Obviously we've not got a lot of arable up in Caithness, or it's all kind of small kind of areas, so it's good to see a bigger farm and see a kind of different setup to what we have up north. Being part of Young Farmers means you get to meet folk from all over the country, from like all walks of life. So it's quite good to come down here and meet folk from other parts of the country outside Caithness.
Just looking round here. What are we? Are we half a mile away from Broxburn? And that's new houses there. How under threat do you feel?
They say they won't cross the 89
They
road
won't
there.
cross the 89.
Well, they say that.
Right.
But
It's either under threat or it's big bucks at one point.
Well,
is it?
yeah.
Or how do you feel about that?
well, if they ever come, I think they'll need to take the whole place, because they'll need to
Yes.
relocate the farm if they ever come, but I don't know if they will. The 20 or 30 year plan for housing, that's stuff we contract farms, so they seem to be more concentrating and going that way. So I don't think we're under threat.
So is this like almost a green corridor between the motorway and the
Yeah, I think if they do cross over, they'll need to say they're going to the motorway as the next barrier, which is quite a lot of ground. But like I say, they seem to be going up the way, so I don't think we're in any imminent risk.
And just to give us again a sense of where we are, describe the shale bin and a wee bit of a background as to what that is.
That's my knowledge now. So the Orange Hill is shale, which was mined out the ground here. So all this ground here is undermined back in late 1800s, early 1900s. So roughly that's 50% of what they took out of the ground, and it came out of the ground a kind of black colour. They burnt it to get the oil out of it, so almost like paraffin, but it was classed as shale oil, but it's almost like paraffin. And then that was heaped up as the spill, so that was all put there with man and cart and horses, all brought out of the ground. There's tunnels everywhere round about here. You can see the old maps of where it was mined. It came out of the ground. Once it was burnt, it was a kind of grey, dusty colour, and it's turned orange over time. But it can be very interesting at times round about here when you're draining and you're following a drain to replace it, and you get it and it suddenly just starts going down and down, and then you get a bit of tin sheet and you lift the tin sheet and it's just a vent shaft going down, and that's the drain, and you're kind of standing there going, oh, I hope this holds. And we've had a few collapses over the years. Cattle would dig a bullock out one day. His head was just sitting above the ground. Must have been lying down because it's still in a perfect lying position, and the shaft just must have went. It was only down about 6 feet. 6 feet, wasn't it? But I was quite happily in the wee entombed in ground. But yeah, there's occasionally some sinkholes. There must have been some of the entrances to the shaft and the air vents, when they sealed them off, they would maybe go 10 or 15 foot down and just done it with sleepers, wooden sleepers, and then put them all up with soil. So you occasionally get a perfectly round hole because the wood's rotted and everything's went down maybe 20, 30 foot. Luckily it's never happened when we've been driving over it, but
I like the surface of the moon up there.
Yeah.
Just introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, why you're here today.
Amy Jo Reid, I'm from Aberlour up in Moray at Speyside. I'm this year's Vice Chair for the Agri and Rural Affairs Committee, and we're here at Dandy Farm looking at cattle and arable.
And are you having is it a good visit so far, Amy?
Yeah, it's really good, it's really interesting. They know their costs and they're not scared to be honest and open and tell you exactly what they think and what they're doing here. Mm-hmm. So we're learning a lot from it and gaining a lot from the speakers, so no, it's been really interesting.
Did you say you're chair of the Agri Affairs Committee?
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair,
yeah.
What does that involve?
So the Agri and Rural Affairs Committee is almost like a separate sort of group underneath the SAYFC umbrella, so it's sort of go more back to our grassroots, so it's for our farming members who are interested in agriculture in any way at all, and that's specifically what we do, because SAYFC covers so many different things. It's such a broad organisation, but we are very much the agri side and the farming side, which I'm really interested in, so I got really involved and gotten a lot out of it and really enjoy it.
So this weekend is conference. So what's conference, and what are you going to get out of the conference, and what you're going to enjoy about this?
Conference is the highlight for me for the Agri calendar. You get so many different people. We've got delegates here from Northern Ireland, which is really good, and all over Scotland. And you meet other young farmers that you maybe haven't met before. You learn different ways of farming. You get different ideas. You come to farms like this and you see something. You think, oh, that could be interesting. I could take that home. So it's a social as well, but it's all about learning and experiencing. And I get a lot out of the Agri weekend.
As you say, young farmers is for everyone. You don't have to be in farming, you don't have to work in farming, you don't have to have a farming background. But this part of it, the Agri Affairs Committee, as you say, this is about your roots, this is about farming, this is about learning about farming and having your voice in like policy and things, is that right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we do a lot of work behind the scenes, working on sort of manifestos, looking at the policy going forward. We've got another survey coming out in the next couple of weeks to find out what the members want, because we are the future of the organisation, but also the agricultural sector. So it's great that other industry bodies speak to us to find out what we want and what our opinions are, because it will affect us in our working lives in all the decades to come.
And do you find that there's enough of that? Is there enough of industry bodies coming to you and saying, what do you think? Because you're the ones that this is going to affect more?
It's definitely getting better. It could always improve, but I would say we've got some really good relationships with some brilliant organisations, some really good collaborations that we're working on. We've built another 2 new collaborations this year with the Morden Institute and the National Sheep Association. Okay. So we're always working on it, and yeah, I think they do come to us and they do listen, so it's really positive.
So if you're saying they listen, if they were listening to this podcast, what would you say? What's the message? You're a serious body with serious views?
Yes, definitely. And we know what we're talking about. We know what we want. We have opinions. So listen to us.
But let's lighten the mood for a little bit, because it is a weekend conference, and there was you were all out last night, weren't you? It's been fun as well.
Definitely. You can't have all work and no play.
Yeah. I certainly I remember my days in Young Farmers. I'm not sure I would have made it this far in a farm tour after a Friday night out, so well done.
No, I'm impressed by everyone. We're pretty fresh-faced.
Good.
This is just the cow shed. It was purpose-built for calving the cows in. Nice airy shed for the calves. It's got cameras and everything up on the roof, just so we can check it remotely. It's a nice light airy shed for them.
It's been quite interesting so far, hasn't it? We're seeing a really good large scale operation here, and we've got I think I did introduce him earlier, but just again we've got Dave Halligan from Gillespie McAndrew who are sponsoring this episode. But Dave's got an interesting background too, because from Canada, and he was a young farmer out there. Dave, what are you making of this from a Canadian ex-young farmer's point of view?
Well, I think the major thing is that it might have been a slow start of the questions, but I think the questions have come through quite hard and fast in a lot of different areas. And I think David's been excellent of just kind of chatting in relation to the underlying, it's a business, it's a cost. And I think there's a lot of takeaways for the farmers here today. And you can see that they've come nice and kitted in their brand new hats that they got at the conference yesterday. But I think as well, you're kind of seeing a lot of outside the box thinking here. They're really looking towards the future and how they can kind of progress. I think the big thing as well is in relation to the same issues across the board in relation to cost, whether it's diesel cost, feed cost, or the labour cost. It doesn't matter what farm you're kind of looking at. It's across the country, it's here, it's Canada, it's New Zealand as well. So it's quite interesting that the narratives are crossing the border, Monty.
Mm-hmm. I'm quite interested in your take on this. Basically, from a young farmer's perspective, was this the kind of thing that you would have done in Canada? These sorts of agri affairs conferences, we're hearing agri affairs is really them getting back to the roots. This is them celebrating their farming side of things and learning and preparing people to be the next generation of farmers, as opposed to the wider thing of young farmers now, which is the social and what have you, and people from any background are involved. I mean, did you have this kind of thing in Canada? What's your...
They do, and I think the one thing to remember about Ontario is the size. The multiple Scotlands could fit inside of it, and I was kind of mentioning to one of the farmers earlier that we have the ability to have different things grown in different parts of the province. So for them, it's kind of different counties across Ontario, Oxford, Wellington, Prince Edward County. It's almost a microcosm that you could see different farms in different action. And what I think the benefit of myself living here and relation to Scottish young farmers is the community is so easily replicated that you can see that they're really keen to see what happens in Dumfries and what happens here in West Lothian and what happens here in Aberdeenshire. That when they do come together, though it is much easier geographically, they can still create those connections, whether it's in their own community or whether it's as a whole. And I think they've done a fantastic job just hosting events like this, that they're taking the ability of geography to the next level.
So from Gillespie McAndrew point of view, you're happy to be involved in this, and it's we're delighted you're on board for the podcast. You're happy then?
100%.
Yeah.
I think from our perspective as well, that in relation to what we were speaking about earlier about farming being a business, that we want to be there hand in hand, and we have a lot of fantastic questions this morning that you can see that the future of Scottish agriculture needs very smart minds like that have come out today. Some hungover minds, but I think they're making it through this morning. But in that regard, there's a lot of issues that will come up. Hopefully we can help them out. But as well, the importance for us is being able to come out on farm. You don't need to come into our office to have a conversation. And I think taking a variety of perspectives, whether it's mine or whether it's yours, Monty, we can bring a different view to the table, hopefully.
So we're just going round to the next grain shed, which we use for tipping wet grain. There's some bits of machinery in there we can see as well, some ploughs and the grain trailers and the grain pit. The grain dryer is important to the farm to give us a sellable crop at the end of the day, because we need to dry the grain so the moisture's low enough to store, and so we don't get an additional cost when we sell it that somebody else needs to dry it. So it's quite an important machine on the farm. So this is the shed we kind of use for tipping wet grain, and it's also kind of used as an extension to the workshop. The stone wall there, that's the only original shed left on the farm, which is the workshop, which is actually, to be all honestly, not fit for purpose anymore because we can't actually get a tractor in it because the door's too low, so we kind of use this as the extension now. There's two grain trailers at the bottom there, two Brockens with the grain trailers. There's one behind that one, that's the grain pit there for the intake to the dryer, so you come in through the roller door there to tip. We tip grain here as well. The other bother we're finding, the roofs are getting quite low. They never thought when they built these sheds in the 60s that things were going to get bigger. So you've got to watch when you tip in here. But we use this for tipping some wet grain and the rest gets tipped outside. Yeah, that's really all we are in here. And I think that's really the last shed. The workshop's next door. There's a couple of other sheds across there if you want to look, but one's fully seed barley and the other one's got some wheat in it if you want to see some of the wheat in the ground.
Well, I think that kind of just about wraps up the meeting today. I'd just like to hand over to Ben Clement for a wee vote of thanks.
Yeah, on behalf of Agri and Rural Affairs, I'd like to thank you guys for having us today. It's fantastic to come to places where people are so honest and open and willing to tell us everything, because that's what we're here for. We're here to learn, and I hope everybody agrees. We'll all go away taking something from today, and it's fantastic. And also a thank you to OnFARM for the podcast for coming, and today as well, just to hear what goes on at Agri Affairs Conference. So yeah, on behalf of Agri and Rural Affairs, I'd like to join in the usual manner and say thanks to the Dandy family for having us.
Good visit, Crawford.
Yep, thoroughly enjoyed the visit here this morning. The Dandies are obviously quite an efficient operation, so it's nice to try and learn from what they're doing correctly and see what we can change.
What have you learned?
That keeping a lid on your costs isn't everything. It's just keeping an eye on the whole job. Every little detail is important, from the simple things, keeping your limes correct, keeping the cattle correct, just simple things are what makes the difference. It's what we're taking away from today, I think, really.
David, what have you learned today?
I have to echo Crawford there as well. I think definitely keeping an eye on your costs and your attention to details, everything. When you're at that scale, the little things make a big difference.
Have a good rest of the conference, and maybe don't get quite as drunk tonight as you did last night, boys.
Nah, we'll try our best.
Never easy though. No, thank you very much for having us.
Yeah,
for coming
perfect.
in.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. There's actually been a lot of Daves and Davids in this episode, but we're going to have a last word with the host farmer, David Dandy. David, have you enjoyed having the young farmers today?
I have, it's been good. It has been. I always feel with these visits, when they start asking questions, I learn or get as much out of it as what they do, so it's been quite enjoyable.
It's interesting. I mean, I was just thinking back to my time with young farmers, which is 20, 25 years ago, and I think I could have come here then, and you know, it would have been a kind of similar setup in terms of you're doing the kind of what you'd almost say more traditional way of things with ploughing and power harrowing and things, but really interesting to see you believe that's still the way and you're making that work for you.
Yeah, I do. No, it's a system. I've seen neighbours try direct drilling, full min tilling, and they get away with it for a few years, and I can see the weed problems. You see their yields drop, and yeah, it maybe works if you're thinking, well, I'm not spending as much on it, maybe not getting as much out, but I just see it as a slippery slope, whereas we're trying to maintain our yields. It's maybe a slightly dearer establishment method, but we're getting the yield there at the end. And at the end of the day, I still think yield is king. That's what pays the bill. So it's a system. It's working.
It's been really interesting for us. Hope it's really interesting for the listeners. I think the young farmers are away on the bus thinking what an interesting morning, and I hope they have a good rest of the conference.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah, it's interesting. Young farmers. Some of them will be going home to their own farms. Some of them will be going into careers in the industry. Some of them might go out with the industry. Some of them might end up working for businesses like yours. We're in safe hands with people like that. They seem to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. They seem to be pretty well clued up. They're all asking quite good, interesting questions. So yeah, they've got a very good knowledge there of a working farm, and that'll stand them in good stead, going forward to the future.
But it does come down to, maybe even not so much just young farmers, as it were, but it does come down to the fact that as an industry, I suppose with a lot of industries, a lot of sectors, we're going to run out of people to be the staff, be the managers, be the people that take the businesses forward in the future.
Yes, no, we definitely are. I think I touched on that earlier. For us, for getting seasonal workers, it's definitely getting harder to get that group of people that want to come and do the hours that's associated with farming. So yeah, going forward, I think it will be harder. There's a lot more sectors that look more enticing for less hours, more pay. I've always kind of thought farming it's not really a job. You have to look at it. It is definitely a lifestyle. You've got to.
Love it. I love it. You love it.
Yeah,
you love it, and you live it. Yeah, and I think again from this visit, that's clear to see. So well done, and thanks for having us here, and thank you.
No problem.
Kind of on behalf of the young farmers, thank you for having them.
No problem.
And my final word, Dave Halligan. We've lots of Daves, as I say, but Dave Halligan from Gillespie McAndrew. You've had a good morning.
Yeah, we had an excellent morning, and I think to bring a bit of Canada this morning, we've had quite the chill to the bone, so I think the young farmers are happy to get back on the bus. But hopefully their heads full with a lot of great ideas of what they learned today. And I think there's a few things to take to their own farms. And as David Dandy highlighted as well, hopefully the industry's in good hands, and we can see that today. And as highlighted on the podcast before, you're not in it for the gold watch, you're in it for the lifestyle, and I think we got a lot of people on that route today.
Cool. Good. It's been great to have you with us, Dave, because this OnFARM podcast, it can't happen without sponsors. And, if you're out there and you want to be involved, get in touch. We'd always love to hear from you if you want to sponsor. Sometimes we have a representative from the sponsor with us on the farm. Sometimes they don't. But today it's been brilliant that Dave Halligan has joined us, and it's made it a really interesting chat for me as well, hearing all about his days in the Canadian equivalent of Young Farmers. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy this episode of OnFARM. If you do, please like, please share, please tell others about it, and a particular shout out to the SAYFC members who are listening. If it's their first time listening, hopefully you'll stick with us. We're all about food, agriculture and rural matters, and we put out a new episode every Monday. So enjoy, and we've got a big back catalogue that you can step back into as well. Thank you.